You do not need more motivation. You need armor. You need a mind so disciplined, so quiet, so unshakable that chaos cannot reach your core. The silent warrior does not beg for attention, does not announce the mission, does not waste strength on noise. He trains in private, sharpens in solitude, and steps forward with a toughness the world never sees coming. This is the mindset that outlasts pressure, outperforms excuses, and outthinks every obstacle in its path. Quiet discipline. Unbreakable toughness. Invisible preparation. Visible results. Chapter 1. Kill the need to be seen. The first weakness you must destroy is the need to be seen. Not the need to grow. Not the need to improve. Not the need to win. The need to be seen winning. That hunger ruins people. It makes them loud before they are strong. It makes them visible before they are ready. It makes them perform instead of produce. And that is why so many people stay stuck. They are not building a life. They are building an image. They are not chasing mastery. They are chasing witnesses. You have a choice. You can spend your energy being noticed, or you can spend your energy becoming dangerous. You cannot fully do both. That's the key. Every time you stop to announce your progress, you break your own momentum. Every time you explain your plan to people who did not earn access to it, you leak energy. Every time you look around to see who is clapping, you stop looking at the work. Attention is expensive. Discipline is profitable. Read that again in your mind. Attention is expensive. Discipline is profitable. Because attention costs focus. It costs emotional stability. It costs patience. It costs the clean, brutal repetition required to become excellent. Discipline gives you something better. Discipline gives you results. Discipline gives you skill. Discipline gives you proof. And proof is always stronger than performance. A weak person wants to be recognized early. A strong person wants to be undeniable later. There is a difference. The weak person says, "Look at me starting." The strong person says nothing and finishes. You don't need their permission. You do not need people to understand your routine. You do not need them to validate your standards. You do not need an audience to make your effort real. The work is real because you did it. The discipline is real because you repeated it. The growth is real because you became more than you were yesterday. That is enough. Look at the quiet employee. Not the one talking in every meeting. Not the one trying to be seen as valuable. The one who solves problems. The one who shows up on time. The one who does not complain. The one who keeps producing day after day when nobody is celebrating. That person often gets promoted. Why? Because consistency is hard to ignore forever. At first, the loud people get attention. Later, the reliable people get responsibility. And responsibility is where real power lies. The same is true for the athlete. The weak athlete trains for the post. The strong athlete trains for the performance. One needs the photo. The other needs the rep. One wants to be admired for trying. The other wants to be feared for preparing. When nobody is watching, the serious athlete is still moving, still stretching, still drilling, still practicing the boring fundamentals that make pressure easier to survive. Be difficult to distract because you are too busy building. That phrase matters. Because distraction often enters your life wearing the mask of approval. A compliment can distract you. A little praise can soften you. A few people noticing can make you sloppy. Now you start checking reactions. Now you start adjusting for applause. Now your standards bend because your attention has shifted from the mission to the audience. That is the trap. And the entrepreneur falls into the same trap. The amateur talks about the business. The professional builds the business. The amateur posts the idea, explains the brand, announces the vision, and keeps refreshing the screen. The professional improves the product, learns the numbers, fixes mistakes, and stays with the process long enough to make the outcome real. It's not about visibility, it's about viability. It's not about being impressive, it's about being effective. That's the key. Too many people confuse being seen with being successful. They are not the same. Being seen is temporary. Being solid is durable. Being seen can happen in a day. Being solid can take years. You have a choice. Do you want the fast reward of attention, or the lasting reward of transformation? Because attention feels good in the moment, but discipline pays you for life. Attention is expensive. Discipline is profitable. Now let's go deeper. Why do people need to be seen so badly? Because being seen feels like progress. It gives emotional relief. It creates the illusion that something important is happening. You tell people your plan. They praise your ambition. Your brain gets a reward before you have earned one. And now the hunger fades. The urgency drops. The fire cools down. Why? Because part of you already collected the emotional payment. That is why silence is strength. When you keep the mission close, the energy stays concentrated. When you stop broadcasting, you stop bleeding momentum. When you stop explaining, you start executing. Secrecy is not fear. It is strategy. Understand that. Silence does not mean insecurity. It means control. It means you are mature enough to protect what is still growing. It means you are disciplined enough to let the work develop before exposing it to noise, opinions, and interruption. Move in silence. Let the outcome speak. That is not just a phrase. That is a method. It means fewer announcements, fewer updates, fewer speeches about what you are about to do. Instead, you train. You practice. You correct. You repeat. You let the ugly phase happen in private. You let the weak phase happen in private. You let the learning phase happen in private. Why? Because beginners talk too much. Builders work too much. And if you are serious about becoming mentally tough, you must stop treating every goal like public entertainment. Some things grow better in private. Your discipline, your standards, your endurance, your focus. All of that gets stronger when it is not constantly exposed to other people's opinions. You don't need their permission. You do not need approval to wake up early. You do not need applause to train hard. You do not need support to keep your word to yourself. That is what a silent warrior understands. He does not confuse loneliness with weakness. He does not confuse invisibility with failure. He does not confuse noise with movement. He knows that the loudest room is often the weakest room. He knows that people who are deeply committed usually have less to say. He knows that when the mission is real, talking becomes unnecessary. So what do you do starting today? First, stop announcing your next move. Do it first. Talk after, if talking is even necessary. Second, reduce how often you seek feedback from people who have not built what you are trying to build. Too many voices create weak decisions. Third, create a private standard. A standard nobody sees but you never break. A wake-up time. A training target. A work block. A rule for your phone. A number of pages. A number of reps. Keep it quietly. Fourth, measure yourself by completion, not expression. Not what you intended. Not what you posted. Not what you said. What did you finish? What did you improve? What did you repeat when it was inconvenient? That is the scoreboard. It's not about being noticed, it's about being built. It's not about who sees your effort, it's about who you become through your effort. That's the key. And once you understand that, you become harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to discourage. Because now your fuel is internal. Now your standards are private. Now your discipline does not depend on witnesses. That is power. Real power is not loud. Real power does not beg to be recognized. Real power can work in the dark for a long time without losing faith. Be difficult to distract because you are too busy building. Move in silence. Let the outcome speak. Attention is expensive. Discipline is profitable. Remember those lines. Use them. Repeat them. Live by them. Because the moment you kill the need to be seen, you recover a massive amount of strength. Mental strength. Emotional strength. Strategic strength. Now your energy belongs to the mission again. And that is where the silent warrior begins. Not with noise. Not with performance. Not with public approval. With private discipline. You stopped chasing visibility. Good. Now you must prepare your mind for pressure itself. You killed the need to be seen. Now, let's build the mind that cannot be shaken. Chapter 2. Train your mind before life attacks it. Most people wait for pressure to teach them strength. That is a mistake. Pressure is not a teacher. Pressure is an examiner. It does not calmly train you. It tests what is already there. It exposes the truth. It reveals the habits you built when life was quiet. That is why weak people panic in hard moments. Not because they are cursed. Not because they are broken. Because they are untrained. And that is why strong people look calm when everything gets heavy. Not because they feel no fear. Not because they were born different. Because they prepared before the impact. You have a choice. You can wait for life to attack your mind and then hope you respond well. Or you can train your mind now, in advance, so the hit does not own you later. That's the key. Mental toughness is not a personality trait. It is a practiced response. It is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you build. Something you rehearse. Something you reinforce until calm becomes familiar and discipline becomes automatic. You do not rise to the moment. You fall to your training. Remember that. When pressure comes, you do not suddenly become wise. You do not magically become composed. You do not discover discipline in the middle of chaos if discipline was absent in the middle of peace. You fall to your training. If your training has been panic, you panic. If your training has been avoidance, you avoid. If your training has been distraction, you scatter. If your training has been self-command, you steady yourself. That is how it works. Look at the soldier. The soldier does not wait for combat to think clearly for the first time. He drills the basics until they stop feeling basic. He repeats movement after movement, again and again, until the body obeys under stress. Why? Because stress steals precision from the unprepared. It scrambles memory. It shortens patience. It weakens judgment. So the training must be deeper than emotion. The soldier survives because repetition beats panic. The same is true for a surgeon. A surgeon does not enter a critical operation depending on confidence alone. Confidence is too unstable. The surgeon depends on preparation, on pattern recognition, on practiced focus, on thousands of correct repetitions that built control under pressure. When the room gets tense, the hands do not need hope. They need training. That's the key. And this does not only apply to soldiers and surgeons. It applies to ordinary people living hard lives. The single parent who keeps the house moving when money is tight. The worker who stays steady through layoffs and uncertainty. The student who does not collapse under a brutal workload. The person rebuilding after heartbreak, grief, failure, or betrayal. What keeps them standing? Not luck. Not perfect emotion. Not endless motivation. Routines. Standards. practiced self-control. They built systems before the hard season arrived. They learned how to wake up and move even when they did not feel ready. They learned how to breathe before reacting. They learned how to narrow attention to the next necessary step. Emotional control comes from rehearsal, not hope. That line matters, because hope without training is fragility. You can hope you stay calm, or you can practice staying calm. You can hope you stay focused, or you can train focus. You can hope pressure will bring out your best, or you can decide that pressure will only reveal what you already built. You have a choice. Practice calm before the storm demands it. That means you do not wait for crisis to work on your breathing. You do not wait for humiliation to work on your ego. You do not wait for loss to work on your composure. You start now, in small ways. That is how mental armor is made. Not in one dramatic speech. Not in one emotional breakthrough. In daily reps of self-command. Small moments, repeated correctly, that become large strength. When your alarm rings and you get up without bargaining, that is training. When you want to check your phone but stay with the task, that is training. When you feel irritation rise and choose not to react instantly, that is training. When discomfort shows up and you do not run, that is training. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. That's the key. People think toughness is built in rare extreme moments. Sometimes it is tested there. But usually it is built in ordinary moments that most people waste. A silent walk without stimulation. A hard workout done without complaint. 10 minutes of stillness when your mind wants noise. A deliberate breath before answering a disrespectful message. Finishing a task when boredom tries to take over. These are not small things. These are rehearsals for pressure. Because the mind is always learning what you repeatedly teach it. If you repeatedly teach it escape, it will escape. If you repeatedly teach it reaction, it will react. If you repeatedly teach it discipline, it will obey. Train the mind early, and chaos arrives late. What does that mean? It means chaos still comes. But it reaches a stronger version of you. It reaches a mind that already knows how to slow down. A body that already knows how to breathe. A focus that already knows how to narrow the field. A nervous system that is not shocked by discomfort because discomfort has already been invited into training. That is the difference. The untrained mind says, "Why is this happening?" The trained mind says, "I expected resistance. Now do the work." The untrained mind says, "I can't handle this." The trained mind says, "Handle the next step." The untrained mind needs the world to become easier. The trained mind becomes harder to break. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to become more disciplined than your current environment. You do not need permission to build morning structure. You do not need permission to sit in silence and learn your own patterns. You do not need permission to become less reactive, less emotional, less fragile. This training is private. And because it is private, it is powerful. Now let's get practical. How do you train your mind before life attacks it? First, practice controlled discomfort every day. Take the cold walk. Finish the last rep. Sit with the urge to quit without obeying it immediately. Delay comfort on purpose. Why? Because comfort addiction weakens command. When you need ease all the time, pressure crushes you fast. It's not about suffering, it's about tolerance. Second, build silence into your day. No music. No scrolling. No constant stimulation. Just silence. Why? Because a noisy mind cannot lead itself. Silence exposes your mental habits. It shows you how restless you are, how dependent you are on distraction, how quickly your mind tries to run. Good. See that clearly. Then train it. Sit still for 5 minutes. then 10, then longer. Not to relax only, to command attention. Third, use breath control. When stress rises, most people speed up. Breathing gets shallow. Thoughts get sloppy. Speech gets reckless. Reverse that. Slow the breath. Slow the body. Slow the reaction. Breathe in deliberately. Hold briefly. Exhale longer than you inhale. Again, again, again. You are teaching the body that pressure does not own the rhythm. Practice calm before the storm demands it. Fourth, narrow your focus. In hard moments, do not try to solve your whole life. Solve the next step. One phone call. One page. One workout. One honest conversation. One clean decision. That's the key. Chaos overwhelms people who think too wide. Discipline strengthens people who act precisely. Fifth, create a routine you follow regardless of mood. A wake-up time. A work block. A training window. A shutdown routine at night. Simple. Repeatable. Non-negotiable. Because routine reduces drama. And mental toughness grows faster when drama shrinks. You do not rise to the moment. You fall to your training. So ask yourself the hard question. What are you training right now? Are you training delay? Are you training excuses? Are you training emotional dependence? Are you training distraction? Or are you training steadiness, focus, patience, endurance? You have a choice. The mind is being trained either way. Every day you are rehearsing something. A strong response or a weak one. A useful identity or a useless one. So rehearse the right one. Train the mind early, and chaos arrives late. This is how the silent warrior is built. Not by pretending pressure will never come. By preparing so deeply that when it does come, it does not find you soft. Pressure will test you. Life will hit you. Unexpected pain will arrive. But if your mind has been trained in advance, the blow lands on armor, not on panic. That is the lesson. You do not need to become fearless. You need to become prepared. You do not need more hope. You need more rehearsal. You do not need a perfect life. You need a trained response. That is mental toughness. Quiet. Deliberate. Built before the battle. You trained your mind before life attacked it. Good. Now you must stop leaking strength through unnecessary words. You built inner control. Now let's sharpen outer discipline. Chapter 3. Stop talking about the mission. Talking feels productive. That is why it is dangerous. It gives you the emotional reward of movement without the physical burden of action. It makes you feel committed before you have proven commitment. It lets you taste the identity before you have earned the discipline. And that is how people stay weak. They speak like builders. They sound like warriors. They describe the mission with passion. But they do not complete it. You have a choice. You can talk about what you are going to do. Or you can become the kind of person who simply does it. You cannot keep confusing explanation with execution. That's the key. The more you announce your intentions, the more your brain starts to believe the work is already in motion. You say you are writing a book. You say you are starting a business. You say you are getting in shape. You say this time is different. People nod. People praise your ambition. People say they are proud of you for taking the first step. But what first step? Talking is not a first step. Talking is often a substitute for a first step. Do not report the mission. Complete the mission. Read that again in your mind. Do not report the mission. Complete the mission. Because every unnecessary word can drain urgency from the task itself. Every public declaration can trick you into feeling ahead of where you really are. Every explanation can become another small escape from the discomfort of actual work. That is why so many people quit early. Not because they lacked talent. Not because they lacked information. Because they spent the energy on language instead of labor. They announced too soon. They collected praise too early. They weakened their own hunger. The person who tells everyone about a new goal on Monday often disappears by Friday. You have seen it. The dramatic gym post. The public promise. The big declaration about change. The emotional speech about a new beginning. Then what? 3 workouts. 2 early mornings. 1 hard week. Then silence. Then excuses. Then a quiet return to old habits. Why? Because public excitement is cheap fuel. It burns fast. It looks hot, but it has no endurance. The real worker is different. The real worker says less. Disappears longer. Returns stronger. While one person is broadcasting intention, another is building capacity. While one person is explaining the mission, another is surviving the boredom of repetition. While one person is posting the plan, another is becoming the proof. Speak less so your effort can speak louder. That phrase matters because effort has a sound of its own. It sounds like repetition. It sounds like consistency. It sounds like discipline carried out when the mood is gone. And that sound is louder than any announcement. Look at the person who vanishes for 6 months. No grand speech. No performance. No desperate need for witnesses. Then one day they return leaner, calmer, stronger, clearer, more disciplined than before. What happened? They stopped performing progress and started producing it. That's the key. Premature praise is poison for weak discipline. If your structure is not strong, praise softens you. If your standards are not firm, compliments make you comfortable. If your mission is still fragile, outside approval can interrupt the growth before it becomes stable. You don't need their permission. You do not need people to clap for your plan. You do not need them to agree with your target. You do not need them to understand what you are building. And you definitely do not need to update everyone while the work is still immature. Some missions die because they were exposed too early. Too many opinions. Too much attention. Too much talking. Not enough repetition. The silent worker understands something the average person does not. The average person uses words to create identity. The silent worker uses actions. The average person says, "I'm the type of person who." The silent worker proves it through routine. The average person wants to sound committed. The silent worker wants to become committed. It's not about sounding serious, it's about being consistent. That's the key. A serious life is built in reps. Not declarations. Not captions. Not endless conversations about what you are planning to do. What did you complete? What did you repeat? What did you improve when nobody was watching? That is the real question. The silent worker measures life by completed reps, not public declarations. 1 more page written. 1 more workout done. 1 more sales call made. 1 more hour of focus protected. 1 more temptation resisted. 1 more promise kept. That is progress. Not talking about discipline. Doing discipline. Not discussing standards. Living standards. Not making the mission sound impressive. Making the mission real. Less announcement. More evidence. That should become one of your rules. Less announcement. More evidence. Because evidence cannot be argued with. Anyone can describe ambition. Few people can show proof. Anyone can talk about changing. Few people can stay with the discomfort long enough to become changed. Anyone can say they are focused. Few people can sit in silence and work without needing attention every 10 minutes. You have a choice. You can keep feeding the image, or you can start feeding the mission. If you feed the image, you will always need another reaction, another compliment, another moment of recognition. If you feed the mission, you will become more stable, more private, more effective, more dangerous, because now your energy stays where it belongs, on the task. Let's get practical. What do you do if you want to stop talking and start becoming? First, reduce your verbal leakage. Stop giving constant updates about what you are building. Stop explaining your goals to casual people. Stop turning every idea into a public event. If the work is real, it can survive silence. Second, replace announcement with scheduled action. Do not say, "I'm going to get disciplined." Set the wake-up time. Set the training time. Set the work block. Set the rule. Words do not create structure. Structure creates structure. Third, stop using conversation to escape discomfort. A lot of people talk because talking feels easier than doing. Talking creates motion without friction. Doing creates friction without applause. Choose friction. That's the key. Fourth, create a private scoreboard. Not what you said. Not what you intended. Not what you posted. What did you finish today? How many reps did you complete? How many distractions did you refuse? How many promises did you keep? Track that. Measure yourself by proof. Fifth, learn to tolerate being underestimated. This is hard for insecure people. They want to correct the record. They want others to know they are working. They want their effort acknowledged in real time. But the silent warrior lets people misunderstand for a while. He does not waste strength trying to manage perception. He manages execution. You don't need their permission. You do not need to defend your process. You do not need to explain your silence. You do not need to make your effort visible just because other people are uncomfortable with your privacy. Move. Build. Repeat. Then let reality make the introduction for you. Do not report the mission. Complete the mission. That line should interrupt you every time you feel the urge to talk too early. Every time you want to explain the plan instead of doing the work. Every time you are tempted to trade substance for appearance. Because talking is seductive. It makes you feel involved. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel like change is near. But the body does not transform from discussion. The bank account does not grow from explanation. The skill does not sharpen from conversation. Results come from repetition. And repetition is usually quiet. Speak less so your effort can speak louder. Less announcement. More evidence. That is how the silent worker lives. Not chasing recognition. Not narrating every move. Not begging to be seen trying. Just building. Again. And again. And again. Until the work becomes too obvious to ignore. That is discipline. That is toughness. That is how a warrior protects energy and sharpens identity. You stop talking about the mission. Good. Now you need a place where your mind can hear itself clearly and your standards can harden without noise. You cut the words. Now it is time to embrace the forge. Chapter 4. Make solitude your training ground. Most people are not afraid of hard work. They are afraid of being alone with themselves. That is the truth. They fear the silence. They fear the stillness. They fear what rises when the noise goes away. Because noise protects weakness. Noise keeps you distracted from your habits. Noise keeps you entertained instead of examined. Noise keeps you reacting instead of reflecting. But the silent warrior does something different. He walks into solitude on purpose. Not because he hates people. Not because he wants to escape life. Because he understands that solitude is a training ground. It is where self-respect is built. It is where clarity gets sharpened. It is where standards stop being theories and start becoming law. Who you are alone is who you are becoming. Remember that. Not who you pretend to be in public. Not who you sound like around others. Not who you perform as when eyes are on you. Who you are alone. That is the real blueprint. Because when no one is watching, the act disappears. Now the truth comes out. Do you keep your word when there is no applause? Do you train when nobody can praise you for it? Do you stay disciplined when there is no audience to impress? That's the key. Your private behavior is not separate from your identity. It is your identity. The way you spend your unseen hours is the way you build your future self. If your private life is careless, your future will be unstable. If your private life is disciplined, your future will carry strength. You have a choice. You can use solitude as a place to decay. Or you can use solitude as a forge. A forge is hot, uncomfortable, demanding. That is exactly why it changes you. When you are alone, your habits become visible. You see how quickly you reach for comfort. How often you avoid stillness. How dependent you are on stimulation. How weak your focus becomes when nobody is pushing you. Good. See it. Do not run from it. Do not decorate it. Do not explain it away. Face it. Silence shows you what noise was hiding. That phrase matters because most people think their problem is lack of time. It is not. Most of the time, it is lack of command. They say they want growth. But in private, they choose ease. They say they want excellence. But alone, they drift. They say they want respect. But in the dark, with no witnesses, they negotiate with every weak impulse. That is where the silent warrior separates himself. He trains early. He walks alone. He sits in stillness. He builds routines that do not depend on social energy. Look at early morning training. That hour reveals character. No crowd. No spotlight. No reward except the one you earn internally. Just you and the decision. Get up or stay down. Move or delay. Obey the standard or obey the mood. That is not just fitness. That is identity training. Every time you rise early and do what needs to be done, you cast a vote for discipline. Every time you remain loyal to the mission in private, self-respect grows. Why? Because self-respect is not built through slogans. It is built through evidence. And evidence is created when you keep promises no one else can see. Who you are alone is who you are becoming. The same is true for a long walk without stimulation. No music. No podcast. No scrolling. No escape. Just your thoughts. Your breath. Your pace. Most people cannot tolerate that for very long. Why? Because silence removes the mask. Now you hear the mental clutter. Now you hear the excuses. Now you hear the insecurity. Now you hear the fragmented attention that noise used to cover up. Good. That is useful information. Silence shows you what noise was hiding. If your thoughts are scattered, now you know what needs training. If your mind is restless, now you know what needs discipline. If your inner voice is weak, now you know what must be strengthened. Solitude is not the problem. Solitude is the diagnosis. And once you see the truth, you can build. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to disappear for an hour and think. You do not need permission to train in private. You do not need permission to stop being constantly available to noise, gossip, stimulation, and emotional chaos. In fact, some of your growth will require disappointing people who benefited from your distraction. That is part of the path. Because solitude does something powerful. It stops you from being programmed by every opinion around you. When you are always surrounded by noise, you stop hearing your own standards. You absorb other people's fears, other people's laziness, other people's excuses, other people's definitions of what is normal. And if you are not careful, you start living by borrowed commands. That is weakness. In silence, your real commander appears. Think about that. When the phone is off, when the room is still, when the world is not talking at you, something begins to surface. Your deeper voice. Not the emotional voice. Not the lazy voice. Not the insecure voice begging for distraction. The real commander. The one who knows what you need to do. The one who is tired of excuses. The one who understands the standard. The one who does not need to debate every obvious responsibility. That voice gets stronger in solitude, but only if you stop drowning it. You have a choice. You can keep filling every empty moment with noise, or you can let silence train your command. That's the key, because solitude is not just about being alone physically. It is about becoming internally organized. Most people are crowded inside. Too many opinions. Too many impulses. Too many unfinished thoughts. Too much stimulation. Solitude clears the room. Now you can see. Now you can decide. Now you can hear yourself think without interruption. That is where clarity is born. And clarity creates force. A confused person hesitates. A clear person moves. A distracted person negotiates. A clear person obeys. A noisy mind reacts. A trained mind commands. So how do you use solitude as a training ground? First, schedule it. Do not wait for silence to appear on its own. Protect it. 10 minutes in the morning. A walk at night. A block of work with no notifications. Time alone without digital sedation. Make solitude deliberate. Second, remove stimulation. If you are always consuming, you are rarely commanding. No phone in your hand. No endless background noise. No constant content feeding your thoughts for you. Let your own mind come forward. Third, observe before you correct. When you first sit in silence, you may notice restlessness. Impulses, anxiety, mental clutter. Do not panic. That does not mean silence is failing. It means silence is revealing. Silence shows you what noise was hiding. Fourth, set one private standard. One thing you do every day alone. Without announcement. Without praise. Without negotiation. Read. Train. Write. Walk. Meditate. Study. Something clean. Something repeatable. Something that proves you can lead yourself when nobody is there. Fifth, stop treating loneliness and solitude as the same thing. Loneliness is emptiness without direction. Solitude is space with purpose. Loneliness makes you feel abandoned. Solitude makes you become accountable. It's not about isolation. It's about instruction. That's the key. Solitude teaches you things social noise never will. It teaches you whether you actually have discipline or just external pressure. It teaches you whether your standards are real or just performative. It teaches you whether you can hold your own attention without being entertained every minute. That is priceless. Because the warrior who can stand alone can stand anywhere. If you need constant company to stay disciplined, your discipline is rented. If you need external pressure to stay focused, your focus is fragile. If you need praise to stay moving, your strength is conditional. But when you can enter silence and still obey the mission, you become different. More stable. More self-directed. More difficult to influence. More dangerous in the best way. In silence, your real commander appears. And once that commander gets stronger, life changes. You stop needing to be pushed. You stop waiting to feel like it. You stop leaning on noise to avoid your own mind. Now you can lead yourself. That is what this chapter is really about. Not just being alone. Becoming trustworthy to yourself in private. Who you are alone is who you are becoming. So become someone strong there. Someone disciplined there. Someone clear there. Someone who does not need witnesses to do the work. That is how the silent warrior hardens his core. In quiet. In repetition. In the unseen hours where identity is forged. You made solitude your training ground. Good. Now you must learn the next law of real toughness. Emotion cannot be your commander. You found clarity in silence. Now let's build consistency in motion. Chapter 5. Choose repetition over emotion. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are inconsistent. And they are inconsistent because they keep trusting emotion. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel motivated. They wait to feel clear. They wait to feel strong. That is why they stay weak. Because emotion is unstable. It rises. It drops. It disappears. It lies. Some mornings you feel sharp. Some mornings you feel heavy. Some days you feel hungry. Some days you feel nothing. So what? The mission does not care. The standard does not care. The deadline does not care. Reality does not care how inspired you felt when the work was due. You have a choice. You can build your life on moods. Or you can build your life on repetition. One collapses under pressure. The other compounds under pressure. That's the key. Feelings fluctuate. Repetition remains. Read that slowly in your mind. Feelings fluctuate. Repetition remains. That sentence should correct you every time you are tempted to negotiate with the work. Because the danger of emotion is not that it exists. The danger is that people obey it too quickly. They say, "I'm just not feeling it today." And then what? No training. No study. No progress. No momentum. One low-feeling day becomes 3. 3 becomes 10. 10 becomes a lifestyle. Now they call themselves stuck. They are not stuck. They are undisciplined. It's not about emotion, it's about obedience. That's the key. The strong person does not pretend emotion is irrelevant. The strong person simply refuses to make emotion the commander. Feel what you feel. Then do what must be done. That is maturity. That is toughness. That is the difference between people who change their lives and people who keep explaining why they haven't. Look at the parent who wakes up exhausted. The child still needs breakfast. The bills still need to be handled. The day still needs to move. There is no luxury of waiting for inspiration. So they move tired. They function tired. They carry responsibility even when their feelings are low. That is repetition over emotion. Look at the student. Not the student who studies when panic hits. The student who sits down when bored. When restless. When distracted. When there is no emotional reward in sight. That is where discipline becomes real. Anyone can work under urgency. Few people can work under boredom. And boredom is a powerful test. Because boredom makes weak people abandon valuable things too early. They want novelty. They want stimulation. They want excitement. But mastery does not care what you want. Mastery demands reps. The same page again. The same drill again. The same correction again. The same uncomfortable effort again. Greatness is often boring. That truth offends people who are addicted to excitement. But it is still the truth. The athlete understands this better than most. A serious athlete does not build strength on good days only. A serious athlete trains when the body feels slow. When the weather is bad. When confidence is low. When yesterday was hard. When today feels inconvenient. Why? Because the bad day is the test day. That is when discipline shows its face. Not when everything feels aligned. Not when energy is high. Not when praise is flowing. On the bad day. On the day when every weak voice says, skip it. On the day when comfort looks reasonable. On the day when your mood tries to rewrite your standards. That is the test. And if your discipline disappears on bad days, then your discipline was never solid. It was just temporary enthusiasm. You have a choice. You can treat bad days like excuses. Or you can treat bad days like proving grounds. One path keeps you soft. The other builds armor. The bad day is the test day. Remember that. The bad day reveals whether your identity is built on convenience or commitment. Because anyone can act disciplined when the feeling is there. The real question is this. Who are you when the feeling is gone? Who are you when the room is cold, the body is tired, the work is repetitive, and there is no emotional reward attached to the next step? That is the real exam. And the silent warrior has already made his decision. Do the work whether the feeling is there or not. That line must become law. Do the work whether the feeling is there or not. Because systems outperform moods. A mood cannot be trusted. A system can. A mood changes with sleep, weather, stress, hormones, distractions, compliments, criticism, and 1,000 other things. A system stays in place. Wake at this time. Train at this time. Study for this long. Eat this way. Shut down the day this way. Simple. Not glamorous. Not dramatic. Effective. It's not about intensity, it's about continuity. That's the key. Most people overestimate emotional fire and underestimate mechanical consistency. They think they need to feel powerful to act powerfully. Wrong. Action often creates the feeling. You start moving first. The mind catches up later. You begin the workout. Energy rises after the first few minutes. You sit at the desk. Focus deepens after the initial resistance. You open the book. The brain settles once the task begins. This is why waiting is such a trap. Waiting for the right feeling delays the action that would have created the right feeling. So stop waiting. Move first. Stabilize later. That is adult discipline. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to be more disciplined than your current emotional state. You do not need permission to work while uninspired. You do not need permission to honor your standard on ordinary, forgettable, unimpressive days. Those days matter most. Because transformation is rarely built on dramatic moments. It is built on repeated obedience during average days. That is where lives change. Quietly. Slowly. But permanently. Let's get practical. How do you choose repetition over emotion in real life? First, stop asking, how do I feel about this? Ask, what does the standard require? That one question changes everything. Feelings matter as information. They do not get final authority. Second, reduce negotiation. The more you debate with yourself, the weaker you become. Do not stand there asking if you should do the workout. Start the warm-up. Do not ask whether you are in the mood to write. Open the document. Do not ask if tonight feels like a good time to study. Set the timer. Action first. Emotion second. Third, make your habits smaller when energy is low, but do not break the chain. On a brutal day, maybe the workout is shorter. Maybe the study block is smaller. Maybe the reading is only a few pages. Fine. But do something. Why? Because consistency protects identity. Missing once may be recoverable. Quitting mentally is harder to repair. Fourth, expect emotional fluctuation. Do not act surprised when motivation fades. Of course it fades. That is what makes discipline necessary. If motivation stayed high all the time, standards would be easy. They are not easy. That is why they matter. Feelings fluctuate. Repetition remains. Fifth, respect boring systems. People want a breakthrough. What they usually need is a schedule. People want a secret. What they usually need is a routine. People want intensity. What they usually need is repetition. It's not about hype, it's about habit. That's the key. The warrior wins because he does not ask emotion to carry the load. He builds a machine. Not a perfect machine. Not a flashy machine. A dependable one. A set of behaviors that continue when motivation disappears. That is why he becomes dangerous. Because other people stop when they feel resistance. He expects resistance. Other people need emotional alignment. He needs only a standard. Other people break rhythm after one bad day. He uses the bad day to prove the rhythm is real. The bad day is the test day. Do the work whether the feeling is there or not. That is how self-respect grows. Because every time you obey the standard without emotional support, you tell yourself something powerful. I can trust me. And self-trust changes everything. Now you are no longer dependent on mood. Now you are no longer trapped by inner weather. Now your life begins to move under command, not under fluctuation. That is strength. Not pretending you always feel good. Not pretending the work is always exciting. Strength is staying loyal when the excitement dies. Strength is repeating the right action long after the emotional novelty is gone. Strength is doing the boring thing so many times that it becomes part of your identity. Greatness is often boring, mechanical, repetitive, uncelebrated. Good. That makes it harder for weak people to fake. And that is why the disciplined rise. You chose repetition over emotion. Good. Now you are ready for the next lesson. How to stop wasting suffering and start extracting strength from it. You built consistency on bad days. Now let's turn hardship into a weapon. Chapter 6. Turn pain into proof. Pain visits everyone. That is not the question. The question is what you do when it arrives. Do you collapse? Do you complain? Do you turn suffering into your identity? Or do you extract something useful from it? That is the dividing line. Weak people experience pain and become smaller. Strong people experience pain and become sharper. Not because pain is magical. Not because suffering is noble by itself. Because they know how to use it. That's the key. Pain is not automatically meaningful. It does not automatically make you wise. It does not automatically build character. A hard life can make a person deeper. It can also make a person bitter, dramatic, distracted, and self-absorbed. Pain by itself proves nothing. Your response proves everything. You have a choice. You can let hardship become an excuse. Or you can turn hardship into evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence that you can endure. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that pressure does not get the final word. Evidence that even when life hits hard, you can still hold the line. Pain is not your enemy. Waste is. Read that again in your mind. Pain is not your enemy. Waste is. Because pain will happen. Loss will happen. Rejection will happen. Failure will happen. Fatigue will happen. Embarrassment will happen. You do not control all of that. But waste. Waste happens when pain teaches you nothing. Waste happens when suffering becomes performance. Waste happens when you keep repeating the same mistake but call it bad luck. Waste happens when hardship visits you and leaves you less disciplined instead of more aware. That is the tragedy. Not pain itself. Wasted pain. Look at rejection. Rejection crushes insecure people because they treat it like a verdict. They hear no and assume they are not enough. They get turned away and immediately turn against themselves. They take one closed door and build an entire identity around it. That is weakness. The silent warrior reads rejection differently. He asks better questions. Was the standard too low? Was the preparation weak? Was the timing wrong? Was the communication poor? Was the target misaligned? Now the pain becomes information. Now the sting becomes instruction. Rejection can make you sharper if you stop personalizing everything and start analyzing it. It's not about being chosen, it's about becoming undeniable. That's the key. The same thing is true of failure. Most people say they want growth. Then failure arrives and they act offended. Why? Because they wanted success with no correction, victory with no humility, progress with no exposure. That is fantasy. Failure exposes gaps. Good. Now you know where to work. Failure shows you what your pride was hiding, what your comfort was avoiding, what your habits were too weak to support. That is valuable. If you use it, use it. Do not advertise it. That line matters because too many people are more committed to telling the story of their hardship than learning from it. They want sympathy faster than they want strategy. They want people to know they are struggling. They want emotional credit for pain that has not yet been converted into discipline. That keeps them stuck. The warrior is different. He gets hit. He studies the hit. He adjusts the guard. He keeps moving. He does not need the world to witness every bruise. Use it. Do not advertise it. That applies to emotional pain, professional pain, physical pain. Think about physical fatigue. A hard workout teaches a serious person something. Not just how to push, how to regulate, how to stay controlled inside discomfort, how to breathe when the body wants to panic, how to keep form when strain rises, how to separate signal from emotion. That is more than exercise. That is endurance training for life. Because life will ask the same thing. Can you stay composed when tired? Can you think clearly when pressure rises? Can you keep your standards when the body and mind both want relief? That is what fatigue reveals. Not just your limits. Your honesty. The bad day reveals whether you are soft in the middle or solid in the middle. Pain is not your enemy. Waste is. And now we need to say something important. Do not make pain your personality. This is where many people get lost. They start out trying to survive something real. Then slowly, without noticing, they begin to build an identity around the wound. Now every conversation returns to the hardship. Every decision is shaped by the damage. Every room becomes a stage for their suffering. That is not strength. That is attachment. The silent warrior does not worship struggle. He respects what it can teach. He does not build an altar to it. He does not need to stay broken to prove he went through something. He does not need to keep reliving pain to make it feel important. Carry the lesson, not the drama. That phrase should protect you. Carry the lesson, not the drama. The lesson might be: raise your standards. Vet people better. Prepare more deeply. Speak less. Recover faster. Trust actions over words. Stop ignoring warning signs. Build more savings. Strengthen your body. Sharpen your focus. Those are lessons. Drama is different. Drama keeps circling the emotion without extracting the principle. Drama wants attention. Drama wants witnesses. Drama wants identity through struggle instead of growth through struggle. You do not need their permission. You do not need permission to stop telling the old story. You do not need permission to outgrow what hurt you. You do not need permission to become more disciplined than your past pain. Some people will be uncomfortable when you stop performing your wounds for them. Good. Keep healing anyway. Keep growing anyway. Keep training anyway. You have a choice. You can keep carrying the emotional theater of what happened. Or you can carry forward only what strengthens you. One makes you heavy. The other makes you dangerous. That's the key. Pain should refine you, not define you. Refinement means you become more precise, more alert, more disciplined, more honest, more difficult to fool, more capable under pressure. Definition means you let the wound name you, control you, excuse you. Refinement builds power. Definition traps you in the past. So how do you turn pain into proof in real life? First, stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this showing me?" That one question shifts you from victimhood to instruction. Second, write the lesson while the pain is still fresh. Not the emotional story. The principle. What failed? What pattern repeated? What weakness got exposed? What standard must rise now? Capture the lesson before comfort makes you forget it. Third, convert pain into a disciplined response. Rejected, improve the skill. Embarrassed, increase preparation. Betrayed, strengthen your boundaries. Physically exhausted, improve recovery and continue training intelligently. Pain that does not change your behavior is mostly wasted. Fourth, keep the emotion private long enough for clarity to form. You do not need to broadcast every hard moment in real time. Silence helps you process without performing. Use it. Do not advertise it. Fifth, do not romanticize suffering. This matters. Some people begin to believe that more pain automatically means more virtue. Wrong. Pain is not a trophy. Damage is not a credential. Exhaustion is not always excellence. The goal is not to suffer more. The goal is to become stronger through what cannot be avoided. It's not about glorifying pain, it's about extracting value. That's the key. The silent warrior does not chase struggle for the sake of struggle. He does not create chaos to feel tough. He does not brag about how much he is carrying. He simply refuses to waste what life inevitably brings. If hardship comes, he uses it. If rejection comes, he studies it. If fatigue comes, he regulates through it. If failure comes, he learns and recalibrates. Then he keeps moving. Carry the lesson, not the drama. That is how identity gets built. Not by avoiding pain completely. That is impossible. Not by collapsing into pain theatrically. That is useless. By converting pain into proof. Proof that you can stay standing. Proof that you can think under pressure. Proof that your standards are real. Proof that adversity does not automatically own your nervous system, your focus, or your future. That is strength. Quiet strength. Useful strength. Earned strength. Pain is not your enemy. Waste is. So the next time life hits you, do not rush to display it. Do not rush to make it your identity. Do not rush to collapse into the story. Pause. Study it. Use it. Then move. That is the silent warrior's way. He does not deny pain. He disciplines it. He directs it. He turns it into proof that he can be trusted under fire. You turned pain into proof. Good. Now you must protect the resource that pain, distraction, and noise are all trying to steal from you, your attention. You learned to use hardship. Now let's learn to starve interference. Chapter 7. Starve distraction and feed precision. Distraction does not always look dangerous. That is why it wins. It rarely kicks the door down. It whispers. It pings. It flashes. It invites. It offers you something small. A glance. A swipe. A quick check. A harmless break. Then it takes your edge. Not all at once. Piece by piece. A minute here. A little focus there. A little momentum there. A little self-trust there. And one day you look up and realize you are busy all the time but dangerous at nothing. That is what distraction does. It makes you active without being effective. It makes you stimulated without being productive. It makes you feel occupied while your standards quietly rot. You have a choice. You can let your attention be pulled by everything. Or you can train it to obey your mission. That's the key. Because attention is not just a tool. Attention is direction. Attention is power. Attention is identity in motion. Where attention goes, identity follows. Read that again in your mind. Where attention goes, identity follows. If your attention goes to comparison, identity becomes insecurity. If your attention goes to noise, identity becomes scattered. If your attention goes to comfort, identity becomes weak. If your attention goes to discipline, identity becomes sharp. That is why focus matters so much. It is not just about getting more done. It is about becoming someone more solid. Scattered attention creates weak results even in talented people. Talent is not enough. Intelligence is not enough. Ambition is not enough. If your attention is fragmented, your results will be fragmented. You cannot build depth with constant interruption. You cannot build mastery with a distracted mind. You cannot build trust in yourself if you keep watching yourself break concentration every few minutes. That is the wound distraction leaves behind. Not just lost time. Lost self-respect. Because every time you say, "I need to focus," and then immediately reach for noise, you teach yourself something dangerous. My word means very little. That's the key. Distraction is a silent thief of power, discipline, and self-trust. Look at the phone. Most people do not use it. It uses them. It trains reflex. It trains urgency. It trains shallow attention. It trains dependence on novelty. You sit down to do one important thing. Then the phone lights up. You check one message. Then one app. Then one headline. Then one video. Then one comparison. Then one emotional reaction you did not need. Now what happened? The work is still there. But your mind is no longer clean enough to do it well. This is how people ruin their own depth. Not through catastrophe. Through interruption. Small interruptions destroy big outcomes. Protect your focus like it is your weapon. Because it is. A dull weapon is dangerous to the person holding it. A distracted mind is the same. It cannot cut cleanly. It cannot stay with difficulty. It cannot hold pressure long enough to produce something excellent. And then people say, "I guess I just lack discipline." No. Often they lack protection. They keep leaving the gates open and acting surprised when the mission gets invaded. The same problem shows up in constant comparison. You open your phone to check one thing. Now you are looking at someone else's body, someone else's money, someone else's success, someone else's pace, someone else's highlight reel. What happens next? Your attention leaves your mission. Your energy leaves your standards. Your identity starts bending toward envy, insecurity, and emotional noise. Now you are no longer building. You are reacting. It's not about their life, it's about your discipline. That's the key. The warrior does not study everyone. He studies the target. The warrior is not everywhere. He is exactly where he needs to be. That is precision. And precision is rare because distraction is everywhere. Then there is multitasking. Another lie. People treat multitasking like a strength. Usually it is just sloppy attention wearing professional clothes. They answer messages while doing important work. They half listen in meetings. They switch tabs every few minutes. They start 5 things and finish none of them cleanly. Then they tell themselves they were productive because they were moving all day. Movement is not accomplishment. Activity is not achievement. Busyness is not excellence. That must be understood. A scattered day can feel full and still produce almost nothing valuable. You have a choice. You can keep worshipping motion, or you can start respecting precision. One makes you feel involved. The other makes you effective. Protect your focus like it is your weapon. Now let's get practical. How do you starve distraction and feed precision? First, reduce your priorities. Not everything matters equally. Stop pretending it does. If you try to attack everything, you will weaken everything. Choose fewer targets. Choose them clearly. Hit them hard. One major task. One critical habit. One main improvement area. That is not limitation. That is force. Cut the noise. Sharpen the aim. Second, design cleaner routines. Do not rely on willpower alone. Willpower fades. Environment speaks louder. If your phone is next to you, distraction is in the room. If your notifications are on, interruption has permission. If your workspace is cluttered, your mind will follow it. So change the setup. Put the phone away. Turn off what does not serve the mission. Use one screen if possible. Clear the desk. Set a timer. Work in blocks. Rest with intention. Return with force. Precision loves simplicity. Third, stop rehearsing interruption. Every time you interrupt yourself, you train a pattern. Every time you check something, for a second, you reinforce fragility. Every time you abandon a hard task for an easy hit of stimulation, you strengthen weakness. That is why discipline must become immediate. When it is time to work, work. When it is time to train, train. When it is time to rest, rest. Clean lines. Clear commands. That's the key. Fourth, guard the first hour of your day. If the first thing you do each morning is react, the rest of the day will carry that posture. Do not wake up and immediately hand your attention to the world. Do not start the day in someone else's agenda. Do not begin with noise. Begin with command. Train. Read. Write. Plan. Sit in silence. Do something that tells your mind, I lead here. Where attention goes, identity follows. Start the day with that truth. Fifth, stop confusing information with progress. You do not need endless input. You need execution. Many people are mentally obese and behaviorally weak. They consume more advice than they apply. They watch more than they do. They research more than they practice. That is distraction disguised as self-improvement. It's not about knowing more, it's about obeying more. That's the key. The silent warrior does not collect endless strategies. He commits to a few and executes them well. Sixth, create intentional environments. Some places weaken you. Some people scatter you. Some habits invite fragmentation. Be honest. If a certain app makes you compare, limit it or remove it. If a certain room makes you drift, change the room. If certain conversations leave your mind cloudy, reduce them. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to protect your attention. You do not need permission to become less available to nonsense. You do not need permission to go quiet, go focused, and go deep. Weak people will call it extreme. Distracted people will call it boring. Undisciplined people will not understand it. That is fine. They do not have to live with your wasted potential. You do. Protect your focus like it is your weapon. Because once focus gets stronger, something else grows with it. Confidence. Real confidence. Not the loud kind. Not the performative kind. The grounded kind. The kind that comes from watching yourself stay with the task. Finish the rep. Complete the session. Hold your attention steady long enough to create proof. Now you trust yourself more. Because now your attention does not betray you every few minutes. That is powerful. Where attention goes, identity follows. So send your attention toward clarity, toward fewer priorities, toward cleaner routines, toward deeper work, toward the habits that make you dangerous in silence. Cut the noise. Sharpen the aim. That is how the silent warrior moves. Not rushed, not scattered, not available to every impulse. He is exact. He knows what matters. He protects the line. He gives his energy where it counts. And because of that, he becomes difficult to outwork, difficult to outthink, and difficult to break. You starved distraction and fed precision. Good. Now it is time to make your discipline even harder to shake by turning it into law. You protected your focus. Now let's build standards that do not negotiate. Chapter 8. Build standards that do not negotiate. Most people say they want confidence. What they really want is reassurance. They want to feel strong without proving strength. They want to feel certain without building evidence. They want the emotion of confidence without the discipline that creates it. That is why their confidence collapses. Because confidence built on words dies in contact with pressure. Real confidence is different. It is earned. It is built the hard way. Quietly. Repeatedly. Through behavior that becomes proof. Self-trust is built through kept promises. That is the foundation. Not positive talk. Not empty affirmations. Not looking in the mirror and repeating lines you have not lived. Kept promises. You say you will rise at a certain hour. Then you rise. You say you will train. Then you train. You say you will stop wasting money. Then you stop. You say you will protect your focus. Then you protect it. That is how self-trust grows. It grows when your actions stop betraying your intentions. That's the key. Most people do not have a confidence problem. They have a broken word problem. They keep making promises to themselves and then violating them. Tomorrow, I'll start. This week, I'll be different. Tonight, I'll stay disciplined. From now on, I'll take myself seriously. Then what? The alarm rings. They negotiate. The training window arrives. They postpone. The temptation shows up. They fold. And now they wonder why they doubt themselves. Why wouldn't they? Their own history has taught them not to trust their own voice. You have a choice. You can keep speaking to yourself like a leader and behaving like a follower. Or you can start living in a way that makes your inner voice believable. Because the strongest people trust themselves for one reason. Evidence. They have seen themselves obey under pressure. They have seen themselves hold the line when convenience invited weakness. They have seen themselves keep standards in private, without applause, without excuses, without negotiation. That creates a different kind of confidence. A grounded one. Not loud. Not showy. Not fragile. Stable. Self-trust is built through kept promises. Read that again in your mind. Self-trust is built through kept promises. That means every small promise matters. Not because the act itself is always huge. Because identity is built through repetition. A fixed wake-up time matters. Not because waking early is magical. Because every morning is a chance to prove command. When the alarm rings, a decision is made. Do I obey comfort, or do I obey the standard? That is never just about sleep. It is about leadership. If you keep choosing comfort, your mind learns something. This person talks big and folds easily. If you keep choosing the standard, your mind learns something else. This person can be trusted. That's the key. The same is true for training. A non-negotiable training window is not just about fitness. It is about law. If training only happens when life feels convenient, then training is not a standard. It is a preference. And preferences are weak. Preferences disappear under stress. Preferences fade when emotion drops. Preferences collapse when the day gets crowded. Standards are different. A standard stays. A standard is a law, not a suggestion. That line matters. Because people treat their deepest responsibilities like optional hobbies. They try to stay disciplined. They hope to be consistent. They want to do better. Weak language. Weak identity. Weak results. The warrior does not say, "I'll try." He says, "This is what I do." A standard is a law, not a suggestion. It applies to money too. Financial discipline is not built through occasional guilt. It is built through repeated boundaries. No impulsive spending. No pretending small leaks do not matter. No using emotion as a budget. A person who cannot control money often cannot control impulse. And a person who cannot control impulse cannot build durable strength. So the standard becomes clear. Spend with intention. Save before showing off. Delay gratification. Respect the future more than the urge. That is not about being restrictive. It is about becoming reliable. It's not about wanting security, it's about obeying structure. That's the key. The same is true for food, for sleep, for work, for speech, for your phone, for the people you allow close to you. Standards are not random rules. They are identity boundaries. They tell the world and yourself what is allowed and what is not. Without standards, mood takes over. Environment takes over. Peer pressure takes over. Convenience takes over. And convenience is a terrible leader. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to become stricter with yourself. You do not need permission to create a cleaner code. You do not need permission to stop living casually just because casual people are around you. In fact, the moment you raise your standards, some people will call you rigid. Good. Rigid in the right direction is better than soft in every direction. The problem is not that people have goals. The problem is that goals without standards are fantasies. A goal says, "I want to get in shape." A standard says, "I train at this time, this many days, no debate." A goal says, "I want more money." A standard says, "I save this amount, spend by these rules, and refuse these habits." A goal says, "I want peace." A standard says, "I protect sleep, control inputs, and stop entertaining chaos." That is the difference. Goals are wishes unless standards give them teeth. Goals can be delayed. Standards define identity every day. That's the key. A goal lives in the future. A standard lives now. And if you want to become unbreakable, you need more than aspirations. You need code. Do not ask what you feel like doing. Ask what your standard requires. That sentence should interrupt weakness. When you feel lazy, ask the standard. When you feel emotional, ask the standard. When you feel distracted, ask the standard. When you feel tempted to compromise, ask the standard. Because feelings shift. Standards hold. Do not ask what you feel like doing. Ask what your standard requires. That is how decision fatigue starts to disappear. Most people are exhausted because they keep renegotiating basic things. Should I work out today? Should I save this money? Should I stay up late? Should I waste another hour? Should I respond emotionally? Should I break the routine just this once? Too many decisions. Too little command. Standards solve that. If the decision was made in advance, today becomes simpler. The wake-up time is fixed. The training window is fixed. The spending rule is fixed. The focus block is fixed. The bedtime is fixed. Now the day requires less drama. And when drama decreases, strength becomes more predictable. That is powerful. Because predictable strength is real strength. Anyone can be strong occasionally. The goal is to become strong by default. A standard is a law, not a suggestion. So how do you build standards that do not negotiate? First, stop creating too many rules. Weak people love complexity because it gives them more places to hide. Choose a few core standards. Clear, specific, repeatable, wake time, training schedule, work block, phone rule, spending rule, sleep rule. Simple. Second, make the standard measurable. Not be more disciplined. That is vague and useless. Instead, wake at 6. Train for 45 minutes. No phone before work. Save 20%. Read 10 pages. Lights out by 10:30. Concrete standards create concrete proof. Third, remove negotiation language. Not, I'll try. Not, I'll aim to. Not, hopefully. Use law language. I do. I don't. This stays. This stops. Identity responds to certainty. Fourth, recover fast if you slip. A broken standard is serious. But one mistake does not require self-destruction. Repair immediately. No drama. No excuses. No week-long collapse because of one bad decision. Carry the code back into action. Fifth, protect the standards that protect everything else. Sleep. Focus. Movement. Spending. Speech. If those collapse, other things follow. You have a choice. You can keep living by preference and wonder why confidence stays weak. Or you can build a code so clear that your mind begins to trust you again. And once self-trust returns, something changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You decide faster. You recover quicker. You stop begging life to become easier because you have become more reliable. That is confidence. Not noise. Not swagger. Not pretending. Evidence. Self-trust is built through kept promises. A standard is a law, not a suggestion. Do not ask what you feel like doing. Ask what your standard requires. Live by those lines. Repeat them until they become reflex. Because the silent warrior is not strong by accident. He is strong by code. He does not wake up guessing. He does not build his day around emotion. He does not treat his mission like a casual hobby. He lives by standards. And standards make him difficult to shake. You built standards that do not negotiate. Good. Now it is time to master what pressure attacks first, your composure. You built the code. Now let's learn how to stay calm when everything around you starts to break. Chapter 9. Master the calm that breaks pressure. Pressure exposes people. It strips away performance. It removes comfort. It reveals training. It shows who is ruled by emotion and who is ruled by command. And in any difficult situation, the most dangerous person is rarely the loudest one. It is the calm one. The one who does not waste motion. The one who does not panic out loud. The one who does not confuse urgency with chaos. The one who can think while others react. That person is difficult to beat. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is not passivity. Calm is not softness. Calm is not fear wearing a mask. Calm is controlled force directed with clarity. That's the key. Calm is power under command. Read that again in your mind. Calm is power under command. A panicked person may have energy. A calm person has usable energy. A panicked person burns fuel fast. A calm person directs fuel well. A panicked person reacts to everything. A calm person chooses what matters. That is why calm wins. Not because it feels better, because it performs better. Panic wastes energy. It speeds up breathing. It tightens the body. It narrows thought in the wrong way. It creates sloppy words, rushed choices, and weak timing. And once panic starts leading, mistakes multiply. That happens in crisis. It happens in business. It happens in sport. It happens in arguments. It happens in daily life. Pressure arrives, and people start leaking strength. They talk too much, move too fast, decide too early, emotionally overspend. Then they call it intensity. No, it is lack of command. Calm is power under command. Look at leaders in real crisis. Not the ones who make speeches for attention. The ones who stabilize the room. The team is tense. The numbers are bad. The deadline is collapsing. Something unexpected has gone wrong. Everyone is watching the leader. And what matters first? Not charisma. Not volume. Not dramatic confidence. Composure. If the leader panics, the group fragments. If the leader steadies, the group borrows that steadiness. That is power. A calm leader slows the room down enough for intelligence to return. They ask clean questions. They separate fact from emotion. They decide what matters now and what can wait. That is why calm multiplies effectiveness. It preserves judgment. The same is true for fighters. Watch a trained fighter under pressure. The untrained person rushes, swings hard, burns energy, forces openings that are not there. The trained fighter is different. He breathes. He reads. He conserves. He waits for the correct opening. Why? Because wasted energy is a tax on weak composure. When others rush, you read. When others break, you breathe. That line is not just for combat. It is for every pressure-filled moment in your life. When the market shifts, read. When the argument heats up, breathe. When the plan breaks, read. When the room gets emotional, breathe. Because the first person to lose composure usually loses influence. High performers understand this. They do not become robotic. They become regulated. A surgeon in a difficult procedure cannot afford emotional chaos. A pilot in a problem situation cannot afford frantic thinking. A professional athlete in the final minutes cannot afford scattered attention. And neither can you. Not in your work. Not in your relationships. Not in your private battles. You have a choice. You can let pressure dictate your state. Or you can train a state that survives pressure. That's the key. Most people think calm is something you either have or do not have. Wrong. Calm is trained. It is practiced in small moments long before big moments demand it. You do not suddenly become composed in a crisis if you are chaotic in traffic, reactive in conversation, impatient in line, and impulsive with your phone. Daily life is where composure is built. If you overreact to small inconvenience, do not expect greatness under major pressure. If you cannot control your voice during a normal disagreement, do not expect mastery when the stakes rise. If you let every irritation own your nervous system, pressure will expose you fast. Still mind. Sharp strike. That phrase matters because calm is not the end goal. Useful action is. The goal is not to be relaxed for the sake of relaxation. The goal is to remain precise when others become sloppy. Still mind. Sharp strike. The still mind sees what panic misses. The still mind notices timing. The still mind hears the right instruction. The still mind protects strength until the decisive moment arrives. Then the sharp strike comes. Clear. Directed. Efficient. That is how calm becomes a weapon. Now let's make it practical. How do you train calm? First, slow your speech. A person who speaks too fast often thinks too fast. And fast, emotional thinking under pressure is usually dirty thinking. Slow down. Not in a weak way. In a deliberate way. Finish your breath. Choose your words. Remove unnecessary language. The calmer you speak, the more command you communicate to yourself and others. It's not about sounding impressive, it's about staying accurate. That's the key. Second, train your breathing. Pressure always tries to steal rhythm first. So protect the rhythm. Inhale slowly through the nose. Hold for a moment. Exhale longer than you inhale. Again and again. This is not a trick. It is command over the body's alarm system. You are telling yourself, pressure is present, but it is not in charge. When others break, you breathe. Third, reduce reactions. Not everything deserves an emotional response. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every mistake deserves a dramatic spiral. Not every inconvenience deserves visible frustration. A lot of strength is simply refusing to react to things that do not matter. That is discipline. Weak people are easy to control because they are easy to trigger. Strong people are difficult to control because they do not hand out reactions cheaply. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to be composed in a room full of panic. You do not need permission to stay measured when others are emotional. You do not need permission to look calm while handling something hard. Some people will mistake your composure for coldness. Let them. They confuse drama with sincerity because they have never learned command. Fourth, tighten your internal commands. Under pressure, your mind will talk. The question is, what does it say? If it says, this is too much, your body will follow. If it says, I'm falling apart, your actions will follow. If it says, I can't handle this, pressure grows. So change the command. Breathe. Read the room. One step at a time. Hold the line. Stay exact. Do not rush. Short commands. Clear instructions. No internal whining. Still mind. Sharp strike. Fifth, rehearse composure in ordinary moments. This is where most people fail. They wait for real pressure before they practice. Too late. Practice when the stakes are small. When the line is slow, stay calm. When the traffic stalls, stay calm. When the message annoys you, breathe before responding. When the plan changes, adjust without theatrics. Small moments are repetitions. Repetitions become identity. Identity shows up under fire. Calm is power under command. That is why composure must become part of your code. Not something you hope for. Something you train. Because once calm is trained, pressure changes shape. It is still there. But now it meets resistance. It meets slower breathing. Cleaner thinking. Better timing. Fewer wasted words. Fewer emotional leaks. And that makes you dangerous. Not dramatic. Dangerous. A calm person can outlast an emotional person. Outthink a reactive person. Outperform a panicked person. Because the calm person keeps access to judgment. When others rush, you read. When others break, you breathe. Live by that. In arguments, breathe. In setbacks, read. In chaos, breathe. In uncertainty, read. Then act. That order matters. Observe first. Regulate second. Strike third. Still mind. Sharp strike. You have a choice. You can keep letting pressure pull you into reaction. Or you can become the one person in the room whose composure makes everyone else feel the difference. One path makes you fragile. The other makes you formidable. And once you master calm, something deeper happens. You stop fearing pressure so much. Why? Because now pressure does not automatically steal your mind. Now you know you can stay with yourself inside hard moments. Now your nervous system is no longer your enemy. That is real toughness. Not shouting. Not forcing. Not pretending you never feel stress. Command. Quiet command. Calm is power under command. Still mind. Sharp strike. Remember those lines. Train those lines. Become those lines. Because the silent warrior is not dangerous because he is loud. He is dangerous because he stays usable under pressure. You mastered the calm that breaks pressure. Good. Now there is only one final step. Becoming the kind of person who cannot be broken by setbacks, delay, pain, or fear. You learned to stay composed. Now let's become unbreakable. Chapter 10. Become the one who cannot be broken. People misunderstand toughness. They think it is loud. They think it is dramatic. They think it is one fearless moment, one heroic act, one explosive decision that proves everything. Wrong. Real toughness is quieter than that. Less glamorous. More demanding. It is built in repetition. In discipline repeated so many times that pressure stops feeling new. In standards held so often that weakness loses influence. In private obedience so deep that chaos cannot easily shake your core. That is what this whole path has been about. Not looking strong. Becoming stable. Not performing resilience. Building resilience. Not pretending to be unbreakable. Training until you are difficult to break. Unbreakable is built, not born. Read that again in your mind. Unbreakable is built, not born. No one arrives here by accident. No one wakes up one day naturally hard to defeat. No one is handed this identity for free. It is earned. Through silence. Through repetition. Through pressure handled correctly. Through standards kept when nobody is watching. Through focus protected when distraction is cheap. Through calm maintained when weaker people begin to leak energy. That is how a warrior becomes hard to shake. Hard to distract. Hard to stop. And that is what unbreakable really means. Not that you never feel pain. Not that you never bend. Not that life never lands a hit. It means the hit does not own your direction. It means the setback does not become your home. It means the pressure does not rewrite your standards. It means uncertainty does not steal your command. That's the key. You do not become unbreakable by avoiding hardship. You become unbreakable by surviving hardship without surrendering identity. There is a difference. Some people survive pain but lose themselves. They become bitter, passive, distracted, emotionally weak, dependent on excuses. That is survival without structure. The silent warrior chooses something else. He endures with direction. He takes the hit. He stabilizes. He studies. He adjusts. He continues. That is toughness. Not stubbornness without intelligence. Not denial without honesty. Endurance with direction. Look at the comeback after failure. The weak person fails and starts narrating a tragedy. The strong person fails and starts rebuilding a system. The weak person asks, "Why me?" The strong person asks, "What now?" The weak person turns one setback into an identity. The strong person turns one setback into training. That is why some people come back stronger. Not because failure was pleasant. Because they did not let failure become final. Bend if you must. Do not quit. That line matters. Because life will bend you. Plans will fail. People will disappoint you. Your body will get tired. Your mind will get tested. You will lose things. You will doubt things. You will walk through seasons that feel unfair. That is part of being alive. The question is not whether you bend. The question is whether you stay in motion. Bend if you must. Do not quit. The quiet rebuild after loss is one of the clearest signs of real toughness. Not the loud comeback. Not the one that needs applause. The quiet one. The person who lost money and started rebuilding without self-pity. The person who got betrayed and became wiser instead of colder. The person who got knocked down by life and returned to routine before motivation came back. That is strength. Why? Because routine is the bridge back to self-respect. When life damages your confidence, your discipline must carry you until confidence returns. When your emotions are unstable, your standards must stabilize the day. When your identity feels shaken, your routines must remind you who you are. That's the key. Unbreakable is built, not born. It is built every time you refuse to let one bad day become a bad month. It is built every time you protect your focus after disappointment. It is built every time you return to the standard after slipping. It is built every time pain arrives and you choose instruction over drama. This is why betrayal does not have to destroy you. It can refine you. It can teach boundaries, discernment, patience, self-reliance, stronger standards. But only if you stop asking pain to define you and start asking it to train you. The same is true for uncertainty. Weak people need guarantees before they move. Strong people build anyway. Because life does not owe you clarity before action. Sometimes action creates clarity. You have a choice. You can keep waiting for certainty, comfort, and emotional ease. Or you can become the one who moves under incomplete conditions. One path creates excuses. The other creates strength. And strength matters more than comfort. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to rebuild slowly. You do not need permission to outgrow your old weakness. You do not need permission to become harder to influence, harder to distract, and harder to defeat. Some people will not understand your discipline. Good. They are not required to understand it. You are required to live it. Now let's make this final chapter practical. How do you become the one who cannot be broken? First, define your weak points honestly. What breaks your rhythm? What steals your focus? What weakens your standards? What kind of pain makes you sloppy? What kind of pressure makes you reactive? What kind of praise makes you soft? Know it. Because once you know what weakens you, ignorance is over. Now responsibility begins. It's not about perfection, it's about preparation. That's the key. Second, train against your specific weakness every day. If distraction weakens you, protect focus harder. If comfort weakens you, practice discomfort. If emotion weakens you, tighten routine. If loneliness weakens you, build discipline in solitude. If approval weakens you, move more quietly. Do not train randomly. Train strategically. Third, return fast. This is critical. Unbreakable people are not flawless. They are fast at recovery. They do not spend 7 days collapsing over one mistake. They do not turn one emotional lapse into a week of surrender. They do not romanticize the fall. They get up. Immediately if possible. Quietly if necessary. But they get up. Bend if you must. Do not quit. Fourth, live by a simple framework. When life gets hard, complexity becomes a burden. So reduce it. Breathe. Focus. Obey the standard. Finish the next task. Protect the routine. Sleep. Repeat. That is enough. You do not need a dramatic reinvention every time life hits you. You need disciplined continuity. Fifth, stop asking whether you are feeling strong. Ask whether you are acting strong. Because real toughness is behavioral. It is visible in choices, in speech, in posture, in what you tolerate, in what you refuse, in what you repeat when the day gets ugly. Unbreakable is built, not born. That phrase should live with you, because it removes fantasy. It removes excuses. It removes the lie that strength belongs only to some rare type of person. No. Strength belongs to the trained. And training is available to you. Every day. Every hour. In every ordinary moment where you decide whether to betray the standard or obey it. That is why this final lesson becomes duty. Once you know what weakens you, you are responsible for training against it. Not once. Daily. Once you know that distraction steals your power, you are responsible for protecting focus. Once you know that talking leaks energy, you are responsible for moving in silence. Once you know that bad days test your discipline, you are responsible for showing up anyway. Once you know that pressure reveals your training, you are responsible for training before pressure arrives. This is no longer theory. This is code. Stay quiet. Stay ready. Stay dangerous. That is not just a phrase for this book. It is a way to live. Stay quiet. Do not waste strength on performance. Do not advertise every move. Do not feed the ego more than the mission. Stay ready. Train early. Build systems. Sharpen standards. Protect attention. Control emotion. Prepare before life demands it. Stay dangerous. Not reckless. Not loud. Not dramatic. Dangerous because you are disciplined. Dangerous because you are calm. Dangerous because you do not break easily. Dangerous because when life bends you, you return stronger instead of softer. That is the silent warrior mindset. Hard to shake. Hard to distract. Hard to stop. You have a choice. You can leave these lessons as words, or you can turn them into identity. One path entertains you. The other transforms you. Choose transformation. Choose quiet discipline. Choose unbreakable toughness. Choose the life that is built instead of announced. Unbreakable is built, not born. Bend if you must. Do not quit. Stay quiet. Stay ready. Stay dangerous. That is the final law. Now live it. The lesson is simple, but it is not easy. Stop chasing attention. Stop announcing your plans. Stop waiting for motivation to rescue you. Build yourself in silence. Train your mind before pressure arrives. Make solitude your school. Make repetition your weapon. Make pain your teacher. Protect your focus. Raise your standards. Control your emotions. Stay calm when others panic. Stay disciplined when others drift. Stay committed when others need applause. That is the silent warrior mindset. Quiet discipline. Unbreakable toughness. No wasted motion. No unnecessary words. No surrender to distraction, weakness, or self-pity. Let others talk. Let others perform. Let others seek validation. You train. You sharpen. You endure. And now the challenge is direct. For the next 30 days, say less, do more, and keep every promise you make to yourself. No excuses. No speeches. No retreat. Become the one who does not need to be seen to be unstoppable.